It's made by Medtronic. It's actually Newport, which was purchased by Medtronic. But it's a very basic ventilator. It can be used in the hospital, EMS, home care, transport. So it's a very basic ventilator. And talking to Dave, you guys might want to start using it for transport, and it would be ideal ventilator for transport. And I'll get into some of those. But it does the real basic, does volume, pressure, and then assist control, SIV, pressure support, and it can do non-invasive as well. Okay, if you're in a pinch, you're running out of V60s, I saw your V60 thing up here, you could use it as a non-invasive ventilator as well. Okay, I just want to point out a couple things, physical characteristics before we get into the internal part of the ventilator. But on the side here, you have your mixing valve that attaches to the side of the ventilator. It's basically a blender. You have a 50 psi hookup. You can put a quick connect on there if you want to go from wall to tank. There's a dial on the front here, and on top here there's a scale that goes from 21 to 100%. Okay. Nice thing about it, has a built-in O2 analyzer, so it'll give you a readout on the front panel of the ventilator. Okay, easy enough. There's also, and again, these ventilators were purchased for emergency preparedness. There's also a attachment on here. It's just kind of a round ball that screws onto the side, and you can do like liter flow. So if you didn't have your PSI would go out, your internal gas system would go out, all you had was tanks, you could then just bleed in liter flow into the ventilator and it would deliver that. You would just adjust your liter flow to get whatever FiO2 you needed. Okay? So it goes either way. And that's another thing, versatility. It's used in LTACs, nursing homes, and home care. So a lot of those places don't have 50 psi gas source. All right? It does entrain air into it. It has dual mini pistons inside. Okay, it's not like some of the ventilators you have, like a turbine driven. This is kind of an old school dual piston. The nice thing about that is it uses 30% oxygen. Again, if it's an emergency preparedness issue, you'd like to know that your machines are operating at top efficiency and it's saving you about 30% on your oxygen consumption. So nice thing about that. The other thing about a piston is when it fires, it'll ventilate a very stiff patient's lungs. So if you have some adult patients with some fairly significant lung issues, they'll be easier to transport with, okay? So that's the gas source. The power, the nice thing about it, again, emergency preparedness is you have a integrated battery that gives you 10 hours. And it attaches, there's a little spring-loaded connection there. You just press it, it pulls it off. The battery is hot swappable. And that slides off. That's a battery. And then there's another 30 minutes internal battery. So while it's running, you can go ahead and swap this out and put a new one on. Especially in a situation where you may be running on auxiliary power, you can charge this separate one up and then swap it out as the ventilator still running. Okay? There's an indicator on her right here. You see the green light? Mm-hmm. That means you're fully charged. There's also an indicator on the front, battery indicator. It's bars, and then at the top it gives you a percent of how much is on the battery itself. Okay? So 10 hours should get you just about anywhere in the hospital. Put this back up. Okay, any questions about that part of it? While we're talking about the back here real quick.
So obviously we're going to leave it plugged in when it's not being used.
Please do that, yeah. Yeah. If it's not being used, it should be plugged in to keep the battery charged up. Okay? This battery that slides off needs to be replaced every 2 years. Okay? The on and off switch is a little toggle switch right here. It'll make a little beep. There'll be a nice little voice that tells you this is the HT70 ventilator. So while it's doing that, you want to get your circuit out, and this is what we call a simple J circuit. And for those of you that have been around for a long time, you know what this is, right? Exhalation valve. It's a little mushroom diaphragm type valve that inflates when the ventilator cycles on and deflates when it cycles off. And if you have PEEP, there's some pressure that's maintained in that gives you your PEEP to your patient.
May I have your attention, please? We are testing the fire alarm system in zone A and C. Please disregard all chimes and strobes. In case of emergency, please dial 2222. Thank you.
Okay. You have 3 connections. So you have your large bore tubing connection, then you have your 2 small tubing connections. Nice thing about this, you can see they're 2 different diameters. So it's kind of, I want to call it dummy proof. So you can't put and you got 2 posts here. One's a larger post, one's a smaller post. So we can kind of figure out pretty quickly what goes where. And remember, again, going back to the emergency preparedness, you may have non-clinicians setting up ventilators, making changes on the ventilators. So it's designed really for clinicians and non-clinicians alike. All right. So what we're going to do is hook up our small tubing. We put the smaller tubing on the small post, the larger tubing on the large post, and you can't interchange them. Won't allow you to do that. And then on your outlet here, I would prefer that you guys use some sort of filter on there, because you are entraining air, ambient air into the ventilator that's then going to the patient. So you guys probably already do that on your ventilators already. Just add a filter that just protects your patient a little bit more. Attach your large bore tubing. Okay. And I'm just going to reset that. When you turn it on, you'll get 3 green buttons at the top here. One of them says start ventilation, circuit check. Okay. And the last one is custom presets. The one thing you have to do, especially if you're setting it up with a new circuit, just like you do on your ventilators now, when you put a circuit on there, what do you guys do? You do like a circuit check. Pressurize the circuit, make sure you don't have any leaks, make sure everything's working correctly. And that's what you do with your circuit check. It's very intuitive. So it's a touch screen, so I hit circuit check. And it says step 1, occlude the circuit. Now, our circuits come with like a little elbow here with a blue cap. So at that point, I would just go ahead and hit accept, and that'll start it. But since I don't do that, I'm going to pretend I have a glove on, and I'm going to occlude my circuit. So once I do that, I hit accept, and it'll takes just a few seconds to do that. You can see it passed. So now what I'm going to do is open the circuit. So if I had the little elbow on here with a cap, I would take that off, and now I'm going to hit accept. And that's step 2. And what you'll do is you'll hear, I don't know if you guys can hear it, it's starting to ramp up the flow. And what it's doing is just ramping up the flow through there. And again, you only have to do this when you're putting a new circuit on it. Okay? Do you have to do that each time you put a new circuit on there? I would recommend, that's our manufacturer's recommendation. Okay? And what it does is this makes sure that your circuit doesn't have any gross leaks, the exhalation valves working correctly, those types of things. Okay? If you are in a life or death situation, you need to put it on right away, put the circuit on, and just go ahead and start with your ventilation. All right, I added a little flex here. I'm going to go ahead and attach my test lung. Okay, at that point, I want to go ahead and it'll say passed, accept. So I'll hit accept. And it takes me back to the main screen. You'll notice with any changes that you make, it's a 2-step process. So I touch whatever I want to change. I use my up or down arrows, and then I hit accept. So somebody doesn't inadvertently touch the screen and make a change. So it's a 2-step process. Okay? The other thing I will tell you is it records every change that you make. It records, like, we call those events. There is an event log inside there, and it'll hold 1,000 events. Okay, so if you ever had a problem with the ventilator and you want to go back, you can download that with a thumb drive and look at the events and see what changes were made, what time, and date and time stamps each chip. Okay, every event. Okay, so every time you press the screen or press a reset button, it records that. Okay. All right, so you can kind of see it's color coded. So green is our settings. Then we have alarms, and if I hit that, you can see that's a pink or red. So green is our settings, red are alarms. You can see there's on the left side here we have alarms, we have our main menu, we have our more screen, which is kind of blue, and those are some patient comfort settings that I'll go through. And then below that you can see we have mode. So right now we're in a volume control and we're in assist control. So if I want to change that, the options we have are assist control, SIMV, or spontaneous. So spontaneous, we can get pressure support, CPAP, or we can do non-invasive. Okay? Can you guys see that okay?
Now I get it.
Yeah. All right, and then below that you have your option of pressure control or volume control. All right, so if I want to make any of those changes, say I want to go to SIMV in volume control, I've made those changes. To log those in, I have to hit accept, and now it changed it. Okay, you see that? If let's go to our main screen just to kind of walk you through. So our total volume is 0.3 liters or 300 mLs. So if I want to change that, I touch it, I use my up arrow. Let's say we want to go 350, and now I want to hit accept. If I forget to hit accept, guess what? It'll go back. Yeah. So it gives me about 15 seconds or 10 seconds to do that. Okay. So again, this is our main screen. We have our patient set up at 350, rate of 12. We can adjust our flow. Our flow and eye time work together. So if I want to increase my eye time, you can see how it affects my peak flow. If I lower it, it increases my peak flow. Okay, so those two are interconnected. I have PEEP of 5, and I have trigger of 2.0, and that's -2 centimeters of water pressure. The other thing that Dave has over here is you can use, this is a flow sensor, and it hooks on in line. Okay, it just pushes in. Okay, and you add it to your system here, and what it'll do is give you exhale volumes.
Oh.
It'll give you flow volume loops, those types of things in there as well. Okay, in an emergency situation, preparedness situation, you're probably not worried about flow volume loops, but maybe exhale tidal volumes, yes or no. But it will give you an inspiratory tidal volume that goes to the patient. So you guys can decide if you want to use that or not. It just gives you that much flexibility in it. All right.
Is that a flow sensor? Is that disposable? Does that come in a circuit?
Yeah. No, this doesn't come in with the circuit. These are sold separately. And single patient use. So you would use it once and then pitch it between patients. Okay? To start ventilating my patient, I'm going to go ahead and hit start ventilation. And you can see it's pretty quiet. We've got a fan going on overhead, but a lot of times you want to look at the patient. Also, over here on the right side, you'll see our pressure bar go up. Gives us an indication. You see two red lines there, and that's our low and high alarm settings. Okay. Again, if we want to make any changes, say we want to change our rate to 10, we use our down button and hit accept. Okay. Up here you can see this is our message screen up here. And it lets us know where settings are SIMV, volume control. Right now our pressure support is off. If we wanted to add pressure support as well, So we want to add 5. Now we're in SIMV plus pressure support. Okay. We want to change it to assist control. We hit our mode. Nope, we just hit it there. Assist control. Accept. Okay. Okay. Down here at the bottom, these 4 parameters, these are our monitor parameters. If you touch any of them, you can see there's a whole additional screen of parameters that you can move down here. So if I want to use O2, right now it's disabled, but it would give us our FiO2 down here at the bottom, which would be our analyzed FiO2. All right. You can see right down here we have our peak pressure. This would be our FiO2. This would be our total respiratory rate, and then our PEEP as well.
Why is the event triggering so quick?
It might be just the volume in the test lung. Let's turn the volume down a little bit. We'll have to investigate that a little bit, see why it's doing that. Might be the test lung or the circuit here. We'll have to check. But anyway, well, you know, it might be our pressure part that's turning it off. Yeah, it is our pressure part.
So in the event of a transport, this can run off of one E-tank?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me kind of change this here. So yeah, if you wanted to transport, again, it's running on an internal battery right now. But if this was plugged in your 50 PSI, you could unplug this, plug right into your tank, and you can go. This does come off the stand. There's a button right here. It just lifts off. Put it on, just kind of slide it back. Clicks back in. Okay. So yeah, you could disconnect your power cord here in the back to your tank, lift it up. It weighs about 15 pounds, and you're ready to go. Okay. Your alarms. Again, if we want to change any of our alarm parameters, we touch, move it up, hit accept. You can see those are in red. If any of them go off, what you'll get, let's see here, turn down our, so here's your alarm situation. You can see it. It should be viewable in any position, 360 around the ventilator. Also gives you a visual. It gives you an audible alarm as well. To silence that, hit your patient silence, and then go ahead and make it. You can see it's a darker red, so you know which one to change. And you can see you'll still get a visual here even after it resets. And to reset any alarms up here, you just hit your reset button. Okay. Under more, you have some other screens. This is where if you wanted to turn the ventilator into non-invasive, you would turn it on, hit accept, and there's a bias flow. for your leak. You would have to use a non-vented mask if you use it, because here's your exhalation valve here. So if you had used a mask with a built-in exhalation valve, you would get alarms because it would be leaking all the time. So you want to use it a non-vented mask. They have the blue elbows on them for the non-vented, and you could use it that way as well. Again, you would put it into spontaneous mode. You would set your pressure support in your PEEP, which would be equivalent to your IPAP and EPAP, and that's how you would set it up in non-invasive.
What's a good leak range?
I would start out at 10, and just depending on what interface you're using, I would recommend a full face mask if you're going to use it non-invasively, not a nasal mask. But you can go up to as high as 30 liters per minute if you need be. Okay, with your leak. And again, it's not like a V60. You know, it's pretty basic, non-invasive for patients. So it's not going to be for all your patients that you would use that, but you do have that capability to use it with it. Okay.
Is there an age range for this circuit? Age or size range for the circuit?
Yeah, it'll go down to 5 kilos on your patients. So, and we have a PEEP circuit, and I'm trying to think what the weight cutoff is. I'll have to look that up for you, Dave. I don't know that right off the top of my head. But we do sell a PEEP circuit, and I think it might be up to 180 on the total volume. Don't quote me on that. And then again, the adult circuit. So, usually any kid that's, you know, over 180, 150 on total volume, then I would switch to the adult circuit. Okay. Questions?
So the flow sensor is optional.
It is very optional. They are, you know, somewhat expensive. The other thing is an emergency preparedness situation. You may not have a enough flow sensors, so you could use it without the flow sensor as well. Let me show you that. But it just clicks in, hook it in your circuit, and you're measuring your exhale volumes.
Any questions, guys?
I would recommend that you get it out. You guys have a test run, just play with it a little bit and get used to it. To turn it off, same, it's reverse. You got your toggle switch in the back here. It'll say accept, okay, to turn it off. And then in a few seconds here, it's gonna chirp at you, and then this hits your alarm reset. Okay.
All good? All right, thank you very much.
And when the other thing, you know, and again, maybe if it's a kind of a sicker patient you're going to transport, the flow sensor will allow you to go from pressure triggering to flow triggering. So, and that might be more of a pediatric or kids thing, where you maybe want a flow trigger instead of a pressure trigger. But that's one of the advantages too with using the flow sensor as well. You'll get your exhale volumes, and then you get flow triggering as well. Okay. Perfect.
Thank you very much.
I'll be here tomorrow too, if you guys get a chance.